On today's show, we talk about the HBCU Culture Battle of the Bands being canceled. Texas Southern Tuba said, F around and find out. And did I hear FAMU cranking up on Alabama A&M? All this and more coming up next on Luke's Band Report. Good evening, afternoon, or whenever you're watching me right now. My name is Jay Luke, the owner and operator of the Passionist Network and the host of Talk That Talk. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Real Talk That Talk. You can also pick up any of our merchandise at www.realtalkthattalk.com. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump into it. The HBCU Culture Battle of the Bands has been canceled, and we're going to talk about it for a second. So first thing right out of the gate, as soon as I saw that it was canceled, my first thought process was like, bro, to me, this is a common thing where there's too many Battle of the Bands. It's, and I know we've had this conversation before, right? There is a lot of money at stake when you start talking about Battle of the Bands, man. And the thing is, trying to hold Battle of the Bands during football season is so difficult, because you got to make sure that it aligns with the schedule. Can certain bands be there? You're going to try to go for the big name programs off the rip, right? And so because of that, you end up investing a lot of money into the situation. And then if you can't back that up, if a band has to back out for any reason, if the number of tickets doesn't sell, if something else is going on, you're having this during, I think it was supposed to be this past weekend? So you're having this during homecoming time. So the number of people who would probably be able to come is just, it doesn't add up for the numbers that you want. And again, I go back and I ask the question. The question is it for the culture or is it for the cash? You know what I'm saying? Because if it's for the culture, then we're also going to think about the perspective as we deal with the culture, meaning, are we doing this at a time frame that works for the culture? Because if we're doing this towards football season, then that means that, honestly, we're not really thinking about the students. We're not thinking about the directors. We're thinking about, I need to get these bands here. I need to get this thing off the ground. I need to make this work. And quiet as it's kept, the financial backing that the National Battle of the Bands has had, very good job with them, and as well as Honda has had, that's the blueprint. If you ain't got the financial backing from that perspective, I would say stay out of the race. Now, here's the other part about that. I really think that it just needs to be canceled altogether. I say if it's not Honda, or if it's not National Battle of the Bands, just cut it. I mean, do HBCU band programs really need this level of this absorbent amount of Battle of the Bands? Like, this is something that we really just have to have inside of what we do for the season. I mean, let's think about it. Multiple bands during the season are traveling and or seeing each other, except for the smaller bands, which that becomes a problem with as well when you start thinking about these Battle of the Bands, right? These smaller bands end up participating in these things. People see these, or they end up participating in these things because they want to be seen. They want to be recognized. They want to be put in a position where people are going to see them, right? And the truth of the matter is, a lot of people aren't seeing them anyway. So this is the greatest opportunity for them to be seen. The problem is, don't nobody want to see them except for them, except for their fan base, which is probably people who, some alumni and, people who are current members, undergraduate students of that school. Problem with that is that ain't gonna generate no money. You got to have a big name ticket on the thing, and on you got to have at least two. And then if you have at least two, you got to make sure that it aligns with their schedule. And so when you ain't got the money to be able to put into that, to back that up, ticket sales wise, so on and so forth, if you got sponsorship or whatever, therein lies the problem. And you got to pull out. And then that not only makes your company look bad, but then on top of that, it makes it look like we can't do right by each other by trying to hold programs that's quote unquote for each other, and then turning around and then saying, oh, well, we got to cancel. It's been numerous Battle of the Bands that's been canceled, if I'm not mistaken. This isn't the first one. unfortunately. And I'm gonna be honest, for the people behind the HBCU Culture Battle of the Bands. I'm not gonna say not necessarily saying feeling sorry for you in that kind of way, like, oh my gosh, but I know what it feels like to be able to put your money in and and invest in something, and then all of a sudden it just falls down. I know what that looks like from a promoter perspective, so I understand the feeling that you may be having right now. So I get it, and I hurt for you. In the same breath, I think that we got to make better decisions as far as these Battle of the Bands and things like that go. We need to think about a better time of when we need to do these. We need to really decide, what is this for? Is it truly for the culture, or is it for the money? And then we also got to just be like realistic. Right? National Battle of the Bands has this thing sewed up. I don't know what National Battle of the Bands is going to look like next year, per the conversations that I've heard behind closed doors, but we'll see with that. But right now, they're the ones who have the Battle of the Bands market. They're the ones who are really kind of taking control of this thing, taking the wheel. They are Honda Battle of the Bands right now. That's what they are. When Honda first came out, everybody was trying to get into the Honda. Everybody wanted to go. When the announcement came out, everybody was excited, right? That's what National Battle of the Bands is. So just let them have it. Let them have it. Let's figure out something else to do. I think we got to really make a decision on what we're doing, how we are exploiting our programs. Is this truly for the culture or not? What are we doing on the back end to be able to sustain these programs? Are we giving these programs the things that they need to actually support them? Are we saying, hey, we're having this to be able to support X, Y, and Z, and actually doing that? And I'm talking about really servicing a need. I'm not talking about, giving them a couple of dollars here or there and saying, all right, we appreciate it. Like really servicing a need, new uniforms or new percussion equipment, new piccolos, something, shoot. Cases of water definitely help, right? Or cases of Gatorade definitely help. But something that's really going to be able to support and substantiate these programs, other than the fact of, we'll give you these couple of dollars because of the fact that, you came, but the couple of dollars only really covers a meal if they're on a trip. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. We just got to find a better way to do things. And then here's my real big personal opinion. We got to stop having Battle of the Bands if we're not going to adjudicate. Or just stop calling Battle of the Bands. How about that? Can we just call them showcases of the HBCU bands, or something to that degree? Because I think for me, which I have the biggest problem with, is the fact that every single one of us, for the most part, unless you went into college not ever playing an instrument, but anybody who's watching this, anybody who's not even part of or have been part of a band, but have seen it, understand this. Most of the time we started in either elementary school, middle school, or high school for playing an instrument, right? Most people ain't starting in college playing an instrument. If you do, congratulations, you are a G. But for the most part, we started in either elementary school, middle school, or high school, right? Most high schools have Battle of the Bands. Most Battle of the Bands are adjudicated Battle of the Bands. The High Stepping Nationals Battle of the Bands that took place back in early 2000s and stuff like that, guess what they did? It was adjudicated. And the truth of the matter is, and the thing that always is going to resonate in my mind, is the fact that most of these university programs most of these high school programs look up to the university programs. And the funny thing about it is, they're willing to be adjudicated, but the university programs are not willing to be adjudicated. That is the thing for me that always will just kind of like leave me feeling some type of way. We call ourselves the Battle of the Bands, but we don't get adjudicated. But we don't get adjudicated because we don't want to feel like, or we don't want to give the perception that the best bands in the land can't lose to somebody else. That is the biggest problem. There's ways to solve this, but we got to get out of this ego. If a high school band can be judged on it, and these kids are used to being judged, then you go to a university program and then people are telling you you're the best program. Then you get the big head, and then you have no reason to work to be better. Therein lies the problem. Because when you get there, the only reason why you want to work is just to fit into the narrative of what everybody's telling you versus what the scores and the adjudication is saying. That is the biggest problem. That is the biggest question I'm going to continue to have. And until we can solve that problem, I think we need to leave these showcases to one group only, National Battle of the Bands. Everything else that happens throughout the year, let it just be the football games. And heck, I'll even go even further. Let it be Mardi Gras. I enjoy watching the crank up in Mardi Gras. Some of the bands sound good. Some of the bands need a lot of work. But that's the time to get all of that out. National Battle of the Bands. And shoot, who knows? Maybe one day National Battle of the Bands might be like, hey, we enjoy the idea of doing it early, but I think it's better if we do it later in the year, because that way we get a more polished programs versus getting them out early and then they're not necessarily polished and they're kind of rushed through. You still got crabs and rookies who are trying to understand the process and all that kind of stuff. You never know. But again, I say leave it to the National Battle of the Bands and let the chips fall where they may. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments. All right. Moving on to the next topic. I was watching this video of Texas Southern and Jackson State. First of all, let me go ahead and put this out here. I watched the halftime. I watched the fifth quarter. I'm just going to be very honest. Good job, Jackson State. I'm going to leave it at that. But then the other half of that, too, is I really appreciate the musical selections that university programs are having. But there's another reason why I appreciate that. The reason why I appreciate that is because of the fact that the stuff that they're playing now is the same type of stuff that I was writing years ago. But when I was writing them, people were like, bro, ain't nobody trying to play that, dog. We ain't trying to do that, and it is what it is. But I'm just saying, I appreciate the fact that people are going in different directions to play music that is not necessarily the typical thing that you want to hear. I think that is what creates or is part of innovation and being creative. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, fine. We're going to play top 10, whatever, top 20, whatever. But it just doesn't make any sense in the fact of that's the only thing that we're shooting for. There's so much music out there. There's so many different areas and places that we can pick from that have great music or just have playable music that you can do great things with, that we tend to put ourselves in a box and say that we can't play these things because it came from this place. And the one thing that I truly, truly appreciate is the fact that people are reaching in different areas, in different places, TV shows and cartoons and commercial jingles and stuff like that to try to find different things to play. Kudos to all bands that are doing that, not just shouting out Jackson State. But I digress. Let me get back to the topic. So apparently there was this brother who was all in this tuba player's face, must have been talking a bunch of crap. Don't know exactly what he was saying, but I saw him talking it. And the tuba player decides to go take jab number 1, jab number 2, jab number 3, and I think it was the 4th one as the young brother laid out on the bleachers, or somebody caught him and he was laid out on the bleachers. And the tuba player commenced to go back and playing his tuba. I will say is, first of all, that young brother who took all those shots, you effed around and you found out. But here's the big but. Here's how I'm going to really see it. And I got to spin it this way because I'm going to be massively honest with you guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat nothing. In the same breath, that's kind of an assault. I know y'all ain't going to agree with that. And that's fine, but it is an assault. Because the truth of the matter is, if in any other arena or any other space, specifically if it was people, let's be real. If it wasn't black people, we would look at that as like, oh yeah, he shouldn't have put his hands on him because he ain't even touch him. Right? We always say, keep your hands to yourself. That brother didn't touch that other brother. Now, I'm pretty sure that Tua player was being annoyed, and rightfully so, to be frustrated and get upset, right? But that's still assault. And as black people, man, we cannot be comfortable with the fact that people are just taking jabs at people just because they're talking to them. We can't have a double standard. We can't be like, yo, you were right for swinging at this person because X, Y, and Z, they were just talking, but then in another breath say, oh man, this is great. It's going across the internet or the social media platforms and stuff like that. You know, people are really applauding this young brother and really like kind of getting into this thing. And there's a part of me that's like, dude effed around and found out, right? But there's the other part of me like saying, yo, that's assault. I mean, y'all tell me what y'all think. I mean, let's just be real. Brother he was in the brother's face. I'm not saying he was right for being in his face. I will never advocate. My thing is, I will never advocate for you jump and fly in front of somebody if you're not ready to deal with the consequences. I will continue and always continue to be that way. But I will even do you one further. Me and you, we were in grade school right now, and we got sent to the principal's office because of that situation. Who would go home first? The person doing the talking or the person doing the swinging? It was the person swinging because they were the aggressor. Because they were saying something to you. There are so many different versions of ways that could have taken place that could have been handled a lot better than that. One of which I saw one of the directors coming, I think it was Larry, by the way, but I saw one of the directors coming up from TSU after it happened, and when they were coming up, that's when, after it happened, it could have been a situation where he removed his tuba and stepped down, or he signaled for a director to come up. You know, there are just multiple ways you could have handled that. But again, we'll say the young brother after found out. But is it assault though? I think it is. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comment section. All right. Finally, the last one. I don't know if anybody watched this battle between Alabama A&M and FAM. The first thing I'm going to ask about this battle is why did y'all go to the field? I'm gonna have to ask Chuck about that. Why I didn't understand the whole dynamic of coming out of the stands and going to the field. That part itself kind of threw me off. But outside of that, though, is it just me or was FAM cranking up? Like, I heard whole hangovers from trumpet players and piccolo players, and I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't FAM. It's not. It doesn't feel FAM-ish. And there were moments in that where there were some things that did kind of feel famished. I mean, obviously, Piccolo's came down and hit the solo for the Stars and Stripes, which for me, I thought was cool that they did it. But then for me, it was also a phasing problem because they were standing on the field, on the sideline. The band was behind them. So what they were hearing was more of a reverb from what was actually being played. So they were kind of a little behind. But then I'll also say that first of all, here's my synopsis of some things. Very good job, piccolo players, for what you do. Historically, FAM has been known for having great piccolo players who could play that. The only thing I'm going to say is when you're going through those particular parts, make sure that you're moving in time and your fingers are moving in time with the tempo. Because of the fact that you can play it, sometimes you're rushing through those lines. And because you're rushing through those lines, you're starting to speed up. So I think that was half of the reason. But I think the other reason was because of the fact that there was a phasing issue. But I thought it was cool, regardless. But FAMU was cranking up. I don't know if anybody felt the same way that I felt with that. So I'm looking at it from two different perspectives, right? everybody has, and I think we're going to bring this up on Talk That Talk. We're going to talk about this on Talk That Talk. Everybody has their traditions that they do within their programs, right? Regardless of who comes in front of the program, there are some things that are going to continue to be traditional. But we always talk about tradition and how tradition can slow down a program and stifle a program, so on and so forth. But do we ever think about when people come into those programs, is it okay for them to make those programs their own? Reason why I'm asking that question is this crank up, in my opinion, is this crank up version of FAM Chipman's version of FAMU? Or is it a residual from being in the SWAC? Think about it. Because truth be told, Chipman is kind of like the second or third head band director at FAM. If I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me in the comment section. But is this his version of what FAM looks like? Or is it he understands that because he's in the SWAC, there are certain things that FAM has to do as a band in order to compete with being in the SWAC? So that's the question on the floor. And that's when I listened to that, I could not put my hand on which one or which situation it was. Was it because they were in the SWAC, or was it because of Chipman's interpretation of what his vision of what FAM looks like? But I will tell you this, for FAM to be hanging over and stuff like that, for me, in my personal opinion, of knowing what FAM has been in the past, being and watching FAM and being in front of them in 2003 as well as 2005, seeing them in 2006, I want to say, at the Honda Battle of the Bands when they opened up with the Bulls theme, which I thought was like the coldest thing in the world, by the way. That gave me chills. But seeing them in all those different capacities, and then seeing them or listening to them in that space, it kind of threw me off. It almost made me feel kind of uncomfortable, because I have never witnessed FAM in that particular realm, in that particular space. Even when they played rap songs or rap tunes or anything like that, it was always in the context of who FAM is, right? Very similar to what Bethune does, which we ain't gonna talk about that, but very similar to what Bethune does, but it's FAM doing it. And so I don't know, y'all tell me what y'all feel about that. I'm really curious to try to figure that out. Is this, his version of what FAM looks like, or is this residual from being in the SWAC? So y'all tell me. All right, man. I'm going to go ahead and so y'all tell me. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to get some of your comments going. So let's get to the comments. This first comment is coming from Kokomo Jack. First of all, big fan of the network, so I appreciate you for coming through, man, and leaving this comment. He says, how do so many marching bands call themselves so when they don't march? This is in response to what I was talking about as far as going back to the Boombox Part 2. So very good question. And I feel the same way. I know we're in the era of stands routine, stand battles, so on and so forth. For me, I just cannot wrap my mind around having a Battle of the Bands without having a marching portion of said Battle of the Bands. To me, that is really odd. I can't wrap my mind around that. But I think that we're just in the era of this. And because of that, I don't think I'm one of those kind of people who are just like, we're just going to deal with it. I'm just going to continue to advocate for us being more diligent on presenting. I was not ready for that, but presenting stronger field shows and field representation, man. So yeah, that's where I am on that. Let me close that. I was not expecting for that. The next one comes from Humphrey Martin, 551 or 5510. And he says, great talk concerning conflicts between bands and football teams. I've noticed how at times, as some bands' field show is coming to its conclusion, a football team returns to the field while the band is still playing or still performing. I think that there should be an understanding that the football team should not come on the field until the band has left the field. I also think that mutual respect of all areas of the competition should be as important as the competition itself. Maybe leaders at our HBCU should remind everyone that competition is ultimately for the betterment of the competitors. Appreciate your thought processes. I mean, the truth of the matter is, when they come out, they kind of come out on the sides, and kind of more or less the end zones, and then I know that they sometimes occupy the sidelines, not as much, but they'll come out in the end zones. But I really don't know how to feel about that, in the sense that I think that, half times have been cut down anyway. And I think that, I don't know why. I know why they were, but I think that they could have done a better job with dealing with that. But I do agree. I think that when football teams do come out and they get ready to warm up to take on the second half and things like that, it's a distraction. It's definitely a distraction when you're trying to finish up your field show. You see the team rush out. It can mess up whatever it is that you're trying to do visually. And then we just don't know, what a student or undergraduate student is thinking as a football player at that time. If they're losing really bad and they want to hurry up and get back to the field of competition, I think that, there's a possibility for them to be more aggressive and be like, hey, move, I need to practice my kicks, or so on and so forth. We've seen that happen in places where bands have been performing and the kickers are sitting there practicing, their kicks. And we've seen that happen. But here's the other half about that. The field of competition is, as competitors or whatever, doesn't necessarily exist in the band world because people don't see it that way. We as band members see it that way, but the masses doesn't necessarily see it that way, specifically the people who are higher up. The truth of the matter is, a lot of HBCU programs, when it comes to athletics, there are things that athletics do that, in my personal opinion, this is just my opinion, are very much in line with what happens at your D1 schools, and so on and so forth, and people who are trying to make it to the league. And so I think that they do a pretty decent job of trying to keep that same energy as it pertains to the athletics. Here's my other side to that. HBCUs and the leaders also have to realize that we're HBCUs and that we don't necessarily operate like your normal PWIs. It just doesn't happen. Our bands are competitive. They just are. And so trying to hold our bands in the same frame and holding our football competitions and our football games in the same light as the PWIs, to me, in my personal opinion, does not work. So I think there is room for conversation and compromisation, but that has to be a situation that they want to happen. So that's just my thoughts on that. Hey, I took a lot longer on that particular comment than I did not mean to, but it's all good, man. So I appreciate everybody who has joined me today. Tonight at 7 o'clock, there is a new episode of Blow the Whistle. So please make sure you subscribe to the Passionates Network, turn on notifications so that you get the update as soon as that episode drops. This particular episode, we're going to be covering the last scores that were released before we get to the new scores. So go ahead and check it out this week. Check it out tonight, 7 o'clock. See what we said about those last scores before you find out what we really got to say about these new scores. So check us out tonight. Share this information out. Remember, you can follow me at or you can follow us at realtalkthattalk.com. You can also follow us at Blow the Whistle at BTW with us. You can also follow Crystal at Diary of a Lady Band Director. So go ahead and share all this information out. Well, I appreciate you joining me, and I will see you all next week.